Okay, good morning. My name is Paty Ramero-Lankao. I work at NRAL and I have which is the National Renewable Energy Lab. And I have a joint appointment with the Mansueto Institute for Urban Innovations of the University of Chicago. And today today I will talk about my work on the food, energy, and water nexus and equity issues. And I just will share with you two research highlights. One is international work, and the other is a case study. The fuel nexus thinking offers two promises. For one, the promise of knowledge and management integration, the ability to work on the key interdependencies between the three systems, understand them, and also target them in order with policies that seek to reduce trade-offs and enhance synergies. That said, the nexus thinking has challenges. Why? Because we know that science policy integration does not always work, because decision makers work in different sectors, different levels of intervention from the local to the national, and also because there are cross-scale inequalities. I will refer to some of them, and because it is very hard to change infrastructures, which are key elements providing food, water, and energy and practices. And I refer to these challenges in the paper I'm referring to there. So my first highlight was an effort that we did for the C40 with a few nexus emphasis. We wanted to examine how adaptation plans manage inequalities in access to these services in cities. And what we did was to combine a discourse and a meta-analysis of 45 plans, which allow us to understand the framing of the problem and of the solutions, but also to quantify how that framing play out. So what are our three key findings from this effort? For once, we found that few nexus thinking is not yet embedded in city adaptation action, that officials are generalists, meaning they deal with many issues, as you will see in the characterization of the key adaptation issues they target, and that equity takes the back seat in adaptation planning and action. So, for instance, how is the adaptation vision framed? Well, mostly a climate risk approach dominates the framing of adaptation plans, with cities always presenting themselves as economic, as leaders and as hubs of economic growth. Resilience is also getting traction. As for the factors receiving attention in the adaptation plans, you see here that inequality is only mentioned, 14 or 20 times, and also that water, energy, and food issues are mentioned, but not their interdependencies. Another key finding is that many actions are presented to address adaptation issues, but again, the connections between water, energy, and food systems are not addressed, but each system is addressed. The systems are here in these charts. So another key finding, as I already said, is that rather around equity, it is in techno-infrastructural actions, which are key to distributive justice in that they allow people to access services, right? These are the key concern of authorities who mostly focus on resilience, low carbon utilities and buildings, a circular economy, and risk as a source of investment opportunity. But equity is not a key concern. As for another way to address equity, which is procedural justice, which is to include the needs and concerns of communities in the understanding of the problem and the solution. We found reference to consultations, but mostly the plan suggests using scientific and technical expertise as source of knowledge, not the knowledge of communities as source of understanding of the problems they face. So let me now focus on the second highlight, which is work we did. It is really, this is co-participatory work we did together with the county of Boulder after we all, me included, were affected by the floods in 2013. And what we, September floods of 2013, what we did was to try to understand what interdependencies amplify or mitigate the effects triggered by the floods, and what options and barriers exist for policy and learning. So that's beautiful Boulder, and here how we were all flooded. The impacts were huge. This was a one in a between 100 and 500 years flood. It damaged almost 10,000 houses, and the impacts of the floods cascaded to affect transport, fuel systems, and the social fabric of Boulder. So we conducted interviews with 17 people responsible for this food, energy, water, and other critical infrastructures and services. And what we wanted to understand was how actions and not only infrastructures amplified or mitigated the impacts of those floods. We found that in many sectors and areas, actions and policies mitigated the negative impacts of the floods. This is a tool we use to work with the key players to really map how the floods here affected many areas, critical infrastructures. But as you can see, the green ones are the actions in the area of food, transportation, energy, and water that help mitigate the cascading effects. But these actions, as powerful as they were not enough to counteract the effects of infrastructural interdependencies marked here with red. The darker the colors, the bigger the impact of the cascade, the amplification. But importantly, through our framework, participants were able to see few systems and what I call here CTAKE, which are social, economic, technical, and environmental and governance factors and connections. But however, contrary to nexus thinking, whenever we ask them, okay, what would you do differently, they continued to suggest actions that just targeted their sector. So the connections are really hard to achieve here. But one thing that we learned by working with all these amazing stakeholders was that there is a key source of inequality in Boulder, that no matter how hard authorities try to help communities, underrepresented communities, what we found was that the channels of communication to inform of how to respond and recover from the floods were not enough to reach underrepresented groups, particularly Latinos, who were afraid to talk to authorities because they were afraid to be deported. But another important element of vulnerability and of inequality is given by the fact that many of them inhabit mobile houses, and as such are only own the houses, but they don't own the land. So when you don't own the land and you need to get money to recover, FEMA is not able to give you support to recover from the floods. So that's a really structural source and institutional source of vulnerability. So to conclude, fuel nexus thinking is promising, but there are many challenges. For one, we are not yet used to work in an iterative and interactive and interdependent way. We are used to work in silos, and that happens also with the academic sector. Another important constraint I see with Nexus thinking is that we are not targeting inequalities. And to target inequalities and injustices, we need to really engage with what we call ethnographic work, participatory work, that really deals more with institutional, political, and cultural factors rather than with technical ones. So thank you so much.